offer. So I said, let me go and meditate for 3 months in 1999. Vipassana meditation. I meditated. And after 3 months, I say, yes, that's where I belong. This is where I belong, in Vipassana meditation. And now when I reached in Theravada meditation, the habits never stopped. The habits of collecting never stopped. I wanted to know this. So now I started, of course, with a very good teacher, Bhante Buddharakkhita, who taught me even to be a teacher, actually, because there were specific courses to train to be a teacher. But at some stage, I stopped somewhere and said, why don't I start collecting theoretical knowledge and really deeply practice. Though I had done a 3-month retreat, but I said, no, as a monk, I have to keep on practicing. So we would get 1 month retreat. I would go to Massachusetts for 1 month and practice. So then from collecting to connecting. So now where I started doing is not so much collecting the Dhamma, but connecting the Dhamma. So to save you from a lot of problems that myself I had, so what I'm doing actually is connecting Dhamma, connecting the dots. Because you people in Singapore, I know you know a lot. You've got so many teachers. But for me, actually, I'm here to see how we can connect the Dhamma. Are you with me on this journey? So not so much about collecting, but connecting. If you want to really be at the same page, let us really agree that we are trying to do what? Connecting. Not so much collecting Dhamma, but collecting. So in other words, what we are doing is practicing and connecting. So actually last time I forgot this kind of things. For me, I'd rather start with the 5 minutes meditation. It's better that way. Yeah, is that okay? Yeah, 5 minutes. Oh, I've even a clock there. Let's meditate for 5 minutes, because then when we start connecting, we'll be coming from a place of what? Of tranquility and peaceful. So let us meditate for 5 minutes. Sit comfortably, feel at ease, let go of the past and future, and abide in the present moment. See if you can connect and reconnect with the breath, because the breath is present. The last time it shows up, like the breath is always present. It's in breath, small sometimes. You can reconnect with the breath that keeps us alive. In whatever you want to reconnect with the breath, you can in a big way, connect with the sound first, connecting with the sound. Be aware of the sound, being aware of hearing the sound. Like sometimes we have white noise, like the noise of the fan. So starting from that broader stage, external sound or internal sound, that can connect you with the external environment before you go to the internal environment. Then from sound, you come to connect with the body. The body is even ever present. You're always with your body. So you start with such things which are connecting the external environment with the internal environment. And now you're going to realize the body is present, and the mind knows that the body is present. And then from that transition, you make another smooth transition of knowing what the body is doing. Of course, the body is sitting here, but there's something else that the body is doing. It's breathing in and out. If you can be aware of the breath, breathing in and breathing out. The body is breathing, and the mind knows that the body is breathing. Can you be aware of the impermanent nature of the breath? So you can sustain your attention from the beginning of the breath to the end of it, beginning of out breath, end of it. Sustaining your attention, aware of the breath and body sensations, sometimes the touch sensations, rising and passing away, the movement of the breath, rising and passing away. If the mind wanders, you can be aware of wandering or thinking, and then come back to the breath. Tu maya sabbe satam sukho kamato pasitva kamato metta sabbasate subhavaye. Having seen that all beings, like oneself, have a desire for happiness, one methodically develops loving kindness for all beings. So as you breathe in, reflect along these lines. May I be well, happy and peaceful. Breathing out, may all beings be well, happy and peaceful. Breathing in, may I be happy. Breathing out, may all beings be happy. Breathing in, may I be peaceful. Breathing out, may all beings be peaceful. Become aware of the sound, the impermanence nature of sound from the beginning to the end. Beginning of the sound, the middle and the end. That's impermanence right there. All right. Okay. Good. So our study should be preceded with meditation so that we connect Now, today's study is impermanence, the three characteristics of existence, impermanence, anicca, suffering, dukkha, and the non-self, anatta. Now, who has never heard about this teaching? You raise your hand. It's very, very important for me because I never knew who's coming. Yes, I never knew who's coming, then I know exactly how far I can go. Yeah, because I can go so deep, and then I leave out some people who have never heard about impermanence, suffering, and non-self. So you've all heard about it, isn't it? That's very good. This is good news. Now we start. So now, by the way, I saw you doing like this, so we're not sure? No. Okay, yeah. Well, that's what we used to do when teachers ask in Uganda. You do like this and get confused whether you're raising the hand or not. Anyway, I see some of the faces here who were here last time. So, anicca, impermanence. There are two kinds of impermanence. One is a gross form of impermanence, another one is subtle form. The gross form of impermanence, we see most of us. We buy our car, we see it getting old, we see our physical body getting tired, getting older. This one, we see it all the time. We see it all the time. Even when I was still young, I was so disappointed when I was still young. My mother bought me very good shoes. And when I visited my grandmother, I stayed there for such a long time. So the shoes stopped fitting me, you know. So by the time we went to look for the same shoes, we cannot find it. We could not find the same shoes, you know. So I had outgrown my shoes. The impermanence, you know. Yes, impermanence, yeah. So impermanence, we see it in our vision. I remember myself when I was in my 30s, actually, 31, 32. I went to Brazil in 1998. And for some reason, I wanted to check my body because I had insurance, travel insurance. I said, I might as well use it. So let me go and check my body. So that I was traveling in Brazil as a layman with a friend of mine from England for 6 months. So now, when they checked my eyes, the doctor told me, my name is Stephen, she was an optician, and a very, very experienced doctor who treated embassies in Brazil. She told me that, Stephen, if everybody has a eyesight like you have, I run out of business. So now I grew up all the time since I was told by the optician that time. I said, wow, I'm blessed. I have such a good eyesight. So every time I was so proud of having good eyesight. So now at some stage when I was a student in Sri Lanka, I was sitting just around the corner. I was doing exams and I saw stars. All of a sudden I could not see. Everything was just like this. I said, what's going on here? So now I finished the exam. I was training actually to see things. Then I went to Kandy. I met the optician. Then I told him I have a problem. I can't see things. He said, okay, let me measure you. He measured and said, you need to put on glasses. I said, me? My eyesight is one of the best. The doctor told me, he said, Venerable, because now I'm a monk, you can get some help. How old are you? I said, I'm about 40, I think I was about 47 like that, 47, 45 years. He told me, you need a little help, a little bit of a help. You have to put on glass, I'm sorry to say. Where's my sight? Impermanence. Is what? Impermanent. The sight that was so good now is impermanent. So everybody knows the impermanence. Now, since the Buddha now is teaching us in his first discourse. By the way, just to make sure that you know, where did the Buddha taught impermanence? Where did the Buddha taught? Those who know Buddha's teaching, where did he teach? Second discourse. What about the first one? Now for me, actually that's how I want to go. For me, because this is called Dhamma Sakkacha, Dhamma discussion. Yes, actually that's what I enjoy most. Giving talks, you know, and I just stand here and talk. I don't enjoy, there are two things I enjoy when to come to Dhamma. Dhamma discussion and Dhamma questions. You ask questions, I enjoy because I'm really digging my head, thinking very hard how to answer the question. Sometimes I cannot answer it. Then I can get answer from you. Another one is discussion. You know? You see? Discussion. So now that's why for me, in the beginning, of course, like when I teach for 3 months in USA, 6 months in USA, when I'm giving talk, it's given like 1 hour, you have to give a talk. You can't ask people questions when I'm in that structure during the retreat. In a retreat, you give a talk? No way. You don't ask. You only, you can interact with the people whom you give talks is during interviews. So the next day after you give a Dhamma talk, then I meet like 8 people, 15 minutes each of them, 15. So that means the whole morning when I'm teaching a retreat, 3 months in USA, it's like the whole morning I'm doing interviews. That's when you get to interact one-on-one and they ask and all these things. But giving a Dhamma talk, no, straight, talk. So now since this is not a retreat, that's why I go back to the default of enjoying discussing the Dhamma at the right time, because I get new ideas, so that when I leave Singapore, so I've learned from you. Okay, where did the Buddha teach impermanence? Did he teach it for the first time, or he taught it later on? Later on, or the first time? Later on. The first discourse of the Buddha is called Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the discourse of turning the wheel of Dhamma. So now, he taught the first discourse the Buddha taught is the Noble Eightfold Path, which is another way of saying the Four Noble Truths. So the question is, where did the Buddha taught impermanence? You said second discourse. What's that second discourse? No, not that one, no. What's the first discourse? What's the Buddha taught? When did the Buddha teach the impermanence? You see, that's what I'm saying, that this is good to have this discussion. Yeah, Kondanya. Yes. Yeah, he taught in the right understanding also. Right understanding, things are impermanent. In fact, when you look at the Noble Eightfold Path, right mindfulness, the right mindfulness, the Buddha is talking about passing our nature of things, passing our nature of things. You saw the four foundation of mindfulness is the four foundation of mindfulness. So now in the Noble Eightfold Path, right mindfulness is the four foundation of mindfulness. So in the four foundation of mindfulness, the Buddha repeated this 21 times, just in case you don't get it. How many times? 21 times the Buddha is teaching about things rising and passing away. So the Buddha taught it in a Noble Eightfold Path. So actually that's how we can start connecting. Every teaching that you learn in Buddhism, first question you ask, where did the Buddha teach this teaching? And you get the discourse. This is very, very important to connect. Otherwise, I've even read a book of a professor who wrote about compassion, and the Buddha said, well, the Buddha would have taught the 9th factor of the, that means instead of eightfold path, he would have taught ninefold path, and compassion being the 9th one. But even somebody said like this, that's a clear example they have not understand. They have not connected Buddha's teaching. Because where is compassion in Noble Eightfold Path? Who can tell? Where's compassion? Yes, but this was a person who was a doctor, who was writing a book. That the compassion should be part of what? The Noble Eightfold Path, isn't it? So now we are going to know clearly that we're not going to connect to the Dhamma like that, to know where the Buddha taught it so that you know it. So now we're going to start by slowly by slowly. Impermanence. Impermanence. The gross form of impermanence, we all understand it, but I don't think we understand the subtle form of impermanence. The subtle forms of impermanence is, of course, you know the gross is through historic civilizations, everything is rising and passing away, you know. But the Buddha, what he wants to know is what we call the subtle form of impermanence. That means from moment to moment. From what? Moment to moment. Knowing that the tree is just getting old, you cannot get insight into impermanence. Otherwise, there will be so many people who are enlightened. I mean, everywhere in the world, even in Uganda, is impermanence. And everybody is looking at trees getting old. Why people are not yet enlightened? Now, the Kondanya message. You say Kondanya. Can I read it? Because the thing is very, very important to remember this before we forget. This is Kondanya. You go to Sanyutta Nikaya, page 1845. 1845. It's called Satya Sanyutta. Here, I'm going to. Just. You told me to say the verse, but it's all 11. Anyway, let me read it. This is what the Blessed One said, elated, the bhikkhus of the group of 5 delighted in the Blessed One's statement. And while this discourses was being spoken, there arose in the Venerable Kondanya the dust-free, stainless vision of the Dhamma. What do I call? The stainless vision of the Dhamma, what is subject to origination in all is all subject to cessation. That's impermanence. In the first discourse. Yeah, you can also find it in right thought. I mean, right understanding, because that's part of wisdom. Because that's called right understanding of impermanence and all these things. It's indirectly there, but he taught it, but also right understanding. I mean, right mindfulness. So now, there are a few things that you need to understand here. That's why I have a body here. Today, what's going on here? It's also impermanence. It's everywhere. Impermanence is everywhere. Now, we have said that if contemplation of impermanence, but when I stand here, you can't see. Can you see that? Okay. Let's say we have 3 characteristics of existence. Impermanence, and everybody is talking about cultivating impermanence. You should contemplate, you should practice impermanence. But other people also are seeing impermanence. In fact, in Uganda, recently I was teaching people. I was trying to find out what's impermanence in my language. So I found a proverb that speaks to impermanence. So it said that ebibimba bika senga enswa etuuka muggulu. In other words, whatever has the nature of rising, has the nature of passing away. If it was not the case, there's an insect which is called, they eat it actually in Uganda. It would have reached heaven. But because whatever is subject to rising, it falls, then it also falls down. So impermanence already is in our teaching also, African wisdom. So it's my job actually to really connect also them, you know. That's what I'm doing actually in Uganda. Connect Buddhism to Africa. So I'm doing this, and it's occupying me. It's occupying a lot of time for me to make sure that, because you know the challenge I got is my mother. My mother doesn't speak English. So now I try to speak the Dhamma in Uganda. And then I cannot find the Uganda word for some teaching, like Nibbana, whatever, and all these things. So now I have to work hard to see she understands the Dhamma, you know, when she's listening to me. So now I have to find out, what does impermanence mean? in Uganda, then I have to look for what the proverb talk about impermanence. So it has really been a wonderful challenge, but a very interesting one. So now, impermanence, anicca, dukkha, and anatta. This is what we are going to study. I'm very confident you've had this before, for sure, but I'm going to ask you a few questions, and we'll really discuss how to connect this teaching to the original teaching of the Buddha. That's what we're doing actually today. That's what we're doing. So now, anicca means what? Impermanence. Now the question is what is anicca? What is it? So we are going to discuss, don't worry. You just tell whatever. What is anicca? Trees? According to the Buddha, now we are with the Buddha now. Forget about what to call gross impermanence, whereby even my grandmother saw impermanence, right? Was not even a Buddhist, but saw impermanence. Now we are with the impermanence of the Buddha. Now we have to ask these questions. What is impermanence? Can I write the question? What is impermanence? What is anicca? You have to give answers. That's why it's called discussion. What is anicca? What is it? What is it? What is it that is anicca? Flowers? No. To save time is the 5 aggregates. The 5 aggregates are what? The 5 aggregates of clinging are anicca. That's the answer. That's finished. Question number 1. So whenever somebody asks you, what is it that is anicca, or what's anicca, is the 5 aggregates. What is it that is anicca? What is it? What is it that is anicca? The question would have been, what is it that is anicca? What is it that is anicca? All right. Now, we need to understand 3 questions on each theme. What is anicca? Lakkana. This is the whole discourse the Buddha gave. Lakkana. What is it? What is anicca lakkana? Anicca lakkana. What is it? Anicca lakkana is what we call the characteristics of what? The characteristics of what? Existence. Lakkana means characteristics. The what? Characteristics. That's the whole discourse. The whole discourse is he called Anicca Sutta. You know why the Buddha had to teach this discourse? You know why the Buddha had to teach this discourse? Oh, thank you. Buddha taught the first discourse, and then there was people got Kondanya got what? Stream entry. But with all the Buddha's teaching, they didn't attain final anatomy. There was a problem there. You know the problem which was there? Those people the Buddha taught, they were still believing in Atta. They're still doing what? Believe in Atta. The Buddha now started teaching them Anatta. And now they attain Anatta. So now what are the characteristics? Anicca lakkana. So this is what you need to know. Anicca lakkana, anicca. So now these are the words you need to know, because these are very important things when you start connecting. When we start to connecting Buddha's teaching. Otherwise, most people even can sing songs about anicca. I've heard a song about anicca. But that means, it doesn't mean that you're going to understand anicca. In fact, for us, we practice with the Burmese teachers, like very, very serious Burmese teachers, like Saido Pandita. You go there and then you go to report him, I was meditating, I was seeing anicca. He would open his eyes like this, as if they're falling out of the head. Because that's not enough. In that report, it doesn't say anything. They're saying I was meditating and I saw anicca. No. He needed us to see more than this. So what's anicca lakkana? That's what he wanted to see. Anicca lakkana. What are the in other words, what are the characteristics of anicca? What are the features, the characteristics of? Already we've seen in Kondanya's statement. You read Kondanya's statement? Yes. One, rising. Rising. These are called signs. Do you have signs in Singapore? The signs go to Geelong. These are signs. These are signs that leads to Geelong, you know. Even here we have them here, signs. What are the signs of characteristics? B, what are another sign? Ceasing, okay, passing away. Passing away. And now number C, what is another characteristic? These are very important to go slowly and very systematic. These are things that we need to know. But most people will just say, oh, impermanence. The Buddha taught about impermanence. You forget that even he gave a whole discourse on other things. What's another characteristic of impermanence? Changing. Both rising and passing away. Both what? Both rising and passing away. Passing away. So passing away, both rising and passing away. So in other words, from a meditation point of view, we need to see, we need to watch anicca like this, from the point of rising until it falls. That's what you need to do from a practice point of view. Not just thinking about anicca. You know, thinking about anicca is one thing, and practicing anicca is another. Okay? Now, another word you need to know. Another word you need to know is, what is anicca? What do we mean? I think let me what do we mean? What do we mean by anicca, anupassana. Passana means to see. Anu, okay, they are made three words. You need to put this part by the way. Anicca, anu, passana. Passana means seeing or contemplating. Contemplating. Anu means along. Then anicca means, of course, impermanence. Impermanence. So we need impermanence. We saw the signs, isn't it? So when you connect these things that I told you, what do you? So you mean you add the three, contemplating along with the signs of impermanence. Contemplating along. Can I write it? Contemplating along with the signs of impermanence. From a practical point of view, that's what we need to do actually. This is what we need to do. But most people, when they're practicing, impermanence, you know, are we together? We need to know these things. From a theoretical point of view, when we start practicing, we start seeing these moments. And once we see these moments, we contemplate along with. Today you have to jump out with the 9 words. I will be very happy today when you jump out of this discussion with the 9 words and you know them properly. So, see what that is anicca is 5 aggregates, non-trees. I'm talking about trees. This is so common, you know. We are not talking about trees. Trees, leave them alone. Of course, but part of form. That part of form, but it come immediate moment to moment, unless you're talking about the 6 senses. But you need to really look at your body, pain. And thank God to impermanence. Pain can go, and grief and all these things. That's so rub, and then we go to. This is very important because we are going, when we start connecting, especially this part is very, very important. When we start connecting, this part is going to be very important. Please don't forget about it, because we are connected to the teaching of the Buddha. Last time we talked about eternity and then annihilation, we are going there. So please, we are going to rub this one. Rub this one. you're going to substitute, what is it that is dukkha? What is it that is dukkha? The 5 aggregates are what? Of grasping are what? Are dukkha. In fact, the Buddha talked about this as a heap of dukkha. Eh? You know the 5 aggregates? Body, feeling, whatever? Is? Now, so this is very interesting. I hope you'll observe that I've just removed the anicca and put the dukkha. That means you can equate anicca with dukkha. Really? I've just removed it. You can even equate it. So now we go, what is dukkha lakkhana? Dukkha what? Dukkha lakkhana. What are the signs of dukkha? Impermanence. Impermanence is one sign. So as soon as things start to become impermanent, you know that dukkha is what? Is on the way, is on the way. But there's some other signs also, like dukkha, oppression. Oppression, oppressiveness. But dukkha, have you heard about the word dukkha? Yeah, dukkha is also when you relieve pain. That's a sign, Yeah, that's a sign. Sign you can see. So now, also other forms of dukkha, we talked about dukkha, the dukkha due to change, another dukkha due to the 5 aggregates, of course. But this is very, very important. What's dukkha lakkhana? This one, anicca, dukkha lakkhana. Dukkha what? Dukkha anu. In Pali, if the words are together like this, then they put a long A. Okay? So this will be dukkha, nupassana. Dukkha, then anu. So when you add them together, then you get that long A like that. So it's very important to know what's called dukkha anupassana. What does that mean is that as you're meditating, this is from a meditation point of view, as you meditate, you contemplate along with what? The signs of what? Suffering. Are we together? This is very, very important. Those are 6 words now you know. One is dukkha lakkhana, and dukkha anupassana. So now, I'm going to wrap because this is something you know already. So now we go to anatta. Anatta. What is it? Is that anatta? Anatta. What is it? The 5 what? What is it? Anatta lakkhana. What is it? Anatta lakkhana. We have a whole discourse dedicated to that. In case you're wondering where this is coming from, the whole discourse is dedicated to that. What is anatta lakkhana? What are the signs of anatta? And this is it has a very big implication because when the Buddha taught those people, they became enlightened. So buckle up, get ready. What is it that is anatta? Impermanence. Impermanence and what? Impermanence, those are the signs. Impermanence. What are the signs? This is important for people who are really fused to understand the teaching of the Buddha on anatta. What they are actually forgetting is the signs. They don't see the signs. Yeah. So now, when it comes to impermanence, things if are impermanent, you cannot say they are in them. In fact, coins? Coin has 2 sides. So this is called what? Anicca side. If you have a coin which is anicca on the other side, tell me the other side, what's there? Anatta, definitely. Because you cannot have anicca, things impermanent, and you say it's the same. Mutually exclusive. You cannot say that you have on one side of the coin is anicca, and on another side of the coin. Another side of the coin, this is side A. And side B, you say, on the other side there's atta. You can't say that. You can't. It does make sense. It does make sense. So this is another side of the coin. Another one is what? Suffering. Suffering. Those are signs. Most of people don't understand the teaching of anatta because they are not taught how to look at the signs. Actually, although the Buddha gave that discourse called the Anatta Sutta, and he gave the signs, but they never connected to see it. We have yet other signs. Other signs are coalesce. Coa what? Coalesce. Coalesce. Another is anything that is conditioned. Anything is what? Is conditioned. So I've put more things. This is it has an implication when it comes to connection of the Dhamma. So please also hang on to this. These 4 things you need to hang on to that. I give the reason very soon. If you fail to understand this, then you cannot really connect the Dhamma as well. Are we together? What are the signs of anatta? Suffering, conditions, and what? Coalesce. There's no core, in other words. And the Buddha gave so many discourses actually to tell you this. Buddha gave discourses comparing to the form, this coalescence. This coalescence, the Buddha actually gave form, physical form. He said that this form, like this. Okay? Then for the aggregates, because we talked about that this anatta is 5 aggregates, for the 3, he compared to what? To bubula. It's called bubula, bubbles, right? Bubbles. For the perception, he compared it to mirage. Perception, he compared to what? Mirage. There's no core, Then for the mental formations, he compared it to a plantain tree. And then the 5th one, consciousness, he compared it to what? Compared it to a magician what? Magician tree, right? So there's no core, None of these things have any core. So he gave already a simile to show you this. As you anatta, because this anatta, like this, so when the 2 combine, they have a long A. So what you should do, contemplating along with what? Yes, contemplating with the sign of this. So now, today I would like you to learn about 9 words. Anicca, dukkha, anicca lakkhana, dukkha lakkhana, and anatta. Yes. So now, if you want a little bit of substance from the sutta, before I proceed, because I want you to make sure that you know what the Buddha was teaching, let me go to the discourse itself. Who can read it? Because I've been talking. Who can read it a little bit? Because it's very, very important that we really understand the discourse. So it's on page Anatta Lakkhana. Who want to read the discourse? The characteristic. This one, okay. Please, I want to read this one, starting from here. Yes, because we are doing a Dhamma discussion, I would like somebody to read. Please read in English. Yes, because if I read, maybe you cannot understand. That's why I want you to read. And not only you should read, all of you read, you give another person. So we want to see whether the Buddha was talking about these signs. Because this is the most complicated teaching that we see.
Read in Singlish. Thus have I heard, On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Varanasi in the deer park at Isipatana. There, the Blessed One addressed the bhikkhus of the group of 5 thus: "Bhikkhus." "Venerable Sir," those bhikkhus replied. The Blessed One said this: "Bhikkhus, form is non-self. For if bhikkhus' form were self, this form would not lead to affliction, and it would be possible to have it of form thus. Let my form be thus, let my form not be thus. But because form is non-self, form leads to affliction, and it is not possible to have it of form. Let my form be thus, let my form not be thus." Same thing with feelings, I think. Feeling is non-self. Perception is non-self. Volitional formations are non-self. Consciousness is non-self. For if bhikkhus' consciousness were self, this consciousness would not lead to affliction, and it would be possible to have it of non-consciousness. Would have it of consciousness. Let my consciousness be thus. Let my consciousness not be thus. But because consciousness is non-self, consciousness leads to affliction, and it is not possible to have it of consciousness. Let my consciousness be thus, let my consciousness not be thus. What do you think, bhikkhus? Is form permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus: "This is mine, this I am, this is myself"? No, Venerable Sir. Is feeling permanent or impermanent? Is perception permanent or impermanent? Are volitional formations permanent or impermanent? Is consciousness permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is what is impermanent suffering or happiness? Suffering, Venerable Sir.
Are you following those
Is
characteristics?
what is permanent suffering and subject to change fit to be regarded thus: "This is mine, this I am, this is myself"? No, Venerable Sir. Therefore, bhikkhus, any kind of form whatsoever, whether past, future, or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, all forms should be seen as it really is, with correct wisdom thus: "This is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself." Any kind of feeling whatsoever, any kind of perception whatsoever, any kind of volitional formations whatsoever, any kind of consciousness whatsoever, whether past, future, or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, inferior or superior, far or near, all consciousness should be seen as it really is, with correct wisdom thus: "This is not mine, this I am not, this is not myself." Seeing thus, bhikkhus, the instructed noble disciple experiences revulsion towards form, revulsion towards feeling, revulsion towards perception, revulsion towards volitional formations, revulsion towards consciousness. Experiencing revulsion, he becomes dispassionate. Through dispassion, his mind is liberated. When it is liberated, there comes the knowledge. It's liberated. He understands, destroyed is birth. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more for this state of being. That is what the Blessed One said. Elated, those bhikkhus delighted in the Blessed One's statement, and while this discourse was being spoken, the minds of the bhikkhus of the group of 5 were liberated from the taints by non-clinging.
So, sadhu, sadhu,
Sadhu,
sadhu,
sadhu,
sadhu.
sadhu.
Wow. It's amazing. This teaching let people attain liberation. That's why I say that this teaching is amazing. But the people were stuck. In the first discourse, people were stuck with the concept of soul and self. Now, if you're a person who, I teach this in many places, and people say, well, we understand it conceptually. So we understand it conceptually, but we don't get it. I think to get this teaching properly, you should ask yourself, before the Buddha, pre-India, pre-Buddhist, this is what? Pre-Buddhism, Buddhism. What people had with the idea of that this thing was what? Permanent. This is very, very important to remember. Very, very important to remember. There is also the idea they had that the atta or the soul is a source of happiness. And also, this soul theory actually evolved. It evolved, and they thought that it's like the size of a town. So it evolved, and they thought it has a core in itself. They think that it's something even in the body. So there was a core. And then it's also taken to be unconditioned. So it's not subject to any going from one body and body, and it goes to species, 84,000 species, and now until liberation. So understand what before the book. It's very easy to understand what the book is. So now I came and said, hey, let's think about this one. I don't understand what you're talking about. If there's anything that is unconditioned, a source of happiness, and permanent is the 5 aggregates. The 5 aggregates. That's what the discourse is talking about. The 5 what? Then he said one by one. He's starting with the form, body, physical body. So in a physical body, you tell me what is permanent. Tell me. Nothing. So let's look one by one. We went by one. Okay. Tell me in your experience whether that everything is happiness. Even when I wake up sometime, I wake like this, you know. So physical body is always, you can't say that it's happening all the time, you know. Then you look at the core. He challenged them like this for the core. He said this is a challenge to them. Don't believe in that. And then unconditioned, you know. He started with the body. The body said that you eat rice and all these things, you know. And the body is conditioned, you know. You have to eat, drink, and all these things. Feelings was talking about the sense and the senses and all these things. So there's no condition. So now he said this thing for me. Then he said that everything is conditioned. Everything is conditioned. And of course his final teaching was Nibbana, which is unconditioned. And which is, again, they smuggle into like this. You must have a self. It's unconditioned. So this is again, if you get this point, when I start connecting Buddha's teaching to the bigger picture, it's going to be easy for you. I'm going to start now. Are you ready? Why did the Buddha go into all this pain? One by one. Why did the Buddha went to all this pain? To really teach all that. People were getting, those days, were preoccupied by the destination of a soul, self. What is it actually? First, what is it? 2, where is it going? And what's liberation and all these things. So in the first discourse, which I want to refer to now actually, because I think this is very, very important at this present moment. The first discourse is called Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. Can you Google it? You read it. Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. my paper. Who can read? Because it's very important to read before we. I'm going to wrap this one, but write it, the characteristics of, because that's going to be the first reason why the Buddha is teaching it. Okay? I'm going to wrap it.
Boon.
Done.
Pass the baton to Boon.
Okay. Okay, I want you to read the first phrase, not the whole thing.
So,
you read it.
First paragraph. Thus have I heard, on one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Varanasi in the deer park in Isipatana. There, the Blessed One addressed the bhikkhus of the group of 5 thus. Bhikkhus, these 2 extremes should not be followed by one who has gone forth into homelessness. What 2? The pursuit of sensual happiness in sensual pleasures, which is low, vulgar, the way of worldlings, ignoble, unbeneficial, and the pursuit of self-mortification, which is painful, ignoble, unbeneficial. Without veering towards either of these extremes, the Tathagata has awakened to the middle way, which gives rise to vision, which gives rise to knowledge, which leads to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to Nibbana.
Okay, stop there. So the Buddha's teaching is leading to what? To vision, peace, and all this, and final liberation. So it's intended towards that, not just only for intellectual entertainment, right? It's not about, wow, the Buddha was talking, wow, this is wonderful. It's aimed at what? Total liberation. And we talked about last time about liberation. You must go through some process. This now we are connected the whole teaching of the 3 characteristics to this one. It all comes down to this one now. Self what? Self-identity view. Self what? Identity view. Identity views, which we call wrong views. 55 was on this side, 7 was on this side, and when you look all together, you add them, you get 62 views. All of them were coming, all these views were coming from this problem. Identifying yourself, soul theory. We call it soul theory. So what? Theory. So now, those who had the soul theory, the soul, know this. They say that everything is what? You remember the characteristics of anatta? You remember I gave you what was it? Oh, you are scratching on. Yeah. So what was the characteristics of what? Impermanence. So what did the Buddha teach was out of those what? Extremes. What did he teach is what? The Dhamma. He taught the what? The Dhamma. What was there? On this extreme, there was a what? There was self. There was a what? A self. On this side, there was what? Also, that became a problem. It became a what? A problem. On one side, there is a self that is going to live forever. On one side, there is no self in annihilation completely. So the Buddha said, I'm not going to go to this extreme, and I'm not going to go to this extreme. What did he teach? Non. Don't confuse it with this. This means what you are talking about is what I'm not saying. Since you are talking about that things are permanent, but for me what I'm saying is what? Impermanence. All right? This no means annihilation. Another what? Annihilation. And what? Annihilation. Because the body, here the self was equated. The self was equated to the body. It's called identity. Identity. This was duality. 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 So that means here there's a soul that is going to go to heaven or heaven. This one, it was at death, at the point of death. Death. And this self is considered to be just even physical to start with. It was physical, you know. So now what Buddha was trying to say in his teaching here is the one you taught Anatta Sutta. What he was saying that this is the Dhamma of non-self, which is anatta. So then what he calls happiness is what? Happiness is suffering. What you call koa is koaless. But he gave so many similes that you have seen. What he is talking about as unconditioned is what? Is conditioned. Is what? Conditioned. All this was done at the altar of what? 5 aggregates. All right? 5 aggregates. All right? So by doing that, he's now teaching and people start to have the opposite of this. Because actually, as we are going to see when I start teaching self, actually we have to talk about, I think, self, non-self. We are going to see about 20 views. Only this one, there are 20 views. 20 views. Because of the 5 aggregates, they have a view about whether self is inside the body or outside, similar identity, or dissimilar. So 4 times 20, 4 times 5 aggregates, you get 20. So Buddha what was trying to teach in this discourse, that this, what you call this, brings problems. These are problems. Huh? All right? So when I teach this, there's no problem, and this, you are going to veer outside this. Are we together? These points, I think it's clear enough, but the question is now, why is he teaching impermanence? Why is he teaching impermanence? We are going to see that. This is very important to jot it down, because there's also a reason why he's teaching it. Are we meditating to make things more impermanent? Let us face it. You are meditating? When you meditate, are you meditating to make things more impermanent? Or accept it. You meditate? When you meditate, are you meditating to make things more impermanent? Or let go what? Interesting. You meditate? Why you meditate on impermanence? To make impermanent things more impermanent, or what? That's very interesting questions, actually, because people, all meditators here, they meditate. We have a meditator here. You meditate on impermanence. Yeah? So when you meditate on impermanence, are you meditating to make things more impermanent? Or why are you meditating on impermanence? If you say you're meditating on impermanence, why do you meditate on it? Just to reflect on it. Let's look for another meditator here. Who's a meditator here? I want to see. Sister Michelle. When you meditate, you meditate to make things which are impermanent more impermanent? Oh, what? Why do you meditate? Things which are impermanent to be more impermanent? Because that's what they tell us, okay, you meditate on impermanence. That means we meditate. Okay, I tell you, there are many reasons actually, but let me connect you with 2 reasons from the scriptures itself. One is to cut off this. You'll be surprised. But the sutta you read, one is to cut off this. One is to cut off this. That's the reason. To cut off this, but more so is to cut on delusions. We are deluded. We are what? Deluded. We have what called delusions, and that's what we call vipalasa. Have you heard about that word? The problem here, because I'm used to a flip chart, so that the information I've written, it stays, but I'm sorry I have to rub this. But this is very important, because the teaching of impermanence go against this. Because here I told you the reason why these people had this, then they had impermanence and all these things. So we really, actually, we don't need to go far away. I shouldn't wrap up this one. I think you got this part. Sorry? We can flip it? I think these people have been not making notes. They have not made notes. I think they're good to go. Okay. Now, we all together, you know these extremes. In the Dhammacakka Sutta, Dhammacakka Pavattana Sutta, his teaching was to go away with these extremes, isn't it? So now, impermanence, let me first finish this one and I'll tell you another reason, which is delusion. I think while we're here, let me do this. So now, people who believe in eternalistic view, what happens? Eternals, they mean everything should go forever, isn't it? So that means everything should do what? Forever, 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 forever. Isn't it? That's what they believe, that everything should do what? Non-stop. Is that? They believe there's a permanence. Things are what? Going on. Soul, death, goes on, keep on going. Isn't it? So this is their trend, that things go. So we talked the problem about this. What are the habits here? The habits here were, we talked about self-mortification. What was the habit here? It's called self-indulgence. Self-indulgence was about what? Sensual pleasures, isn't it? Sensual pleasures. Sensual what? Pleasures. Get this point clear. So now, people who really want to enjoy, things should be constant. Things should what? Constant. Things should what? Be constant. This is constant. This is going up. This is constant. That's why during your wedding, you said, darling, I'm going to love you forever. but then when you said that, you said, no, I'm a Buddhist. Everything is impermanent. That's why we should understand things from what we call relative level and ultimate level. So we should accept relative level to live our life. You know? To do what? To live our life. So you know when to use impermanence and when to use impermanence. I call that sitting in a window practice. Sit in a window practice means you sit in a window. If it's time to look at impermanence, you just do like this. If it's time to look at permanence, you do like this. So you go on a honeymoon, and you have a wonderful meal, and that's your first dawn honeymoon. And I don't know why there's no honey sun, but it should be honey sun, because the sun is more warm. At any rate, anyway, you get the point. Then you're a person who has been studying Buddhism, all the scriptures, everything is impermanent, including marriage. And then your wife said that, darling, honey, I love you forever. Say, no way, you can't do that. You'll get a slap in the face. So you should know when to. This one is not to make us morbid, that we don't accept where permanence is important. Because permanence is very important also. Like, for instance, I have a monastery in Uganda, If I just think about impermanence, after all these monks I'm training, they're going to die, why bother, Then I will not be motivated to do anything. Monks I'm training, nobody's going to live 100 years, So there's a place for permanence to understand in day-to-day life, to relate. But we should know when we come to the Dhamma now. To the Dhamma is very, very important so that you see things as impermanent. Otherwise, it's called spiritual bypass. Have you heard about spiritual bypass? Spiritual bypass is not facing the reality. Your mother gets sick, your father gets sick. That's the first noble truth. What do you expect? Take your mother to the hospital. Come on. The Buddha talked about the first noble truth. You don't know the first noble truth. That's where the problem comes. This is called spiritual what? Spiritual bypass. Somebody passed. Somebody's friend passed. Someplace, Somebody has a pain, he just broke the leg, it's very painful. It's very painful. Come on, meditate on pain. Actually, I've met so many people like that in my life, and most of them are Buddhists, Eh? I'm not saying that you should have insight into impermanence, but you should understand when to use it. And otherwise, most of the time we get into these studies and then we get stubborn, Like this table is more space. This table is actually 4 elements. There's fire element, earth element, water element. That's the reality. Table is just conventional. Now you go to what supermarket? Fair price? Where do you buy tables here? IKEA. You go to IKEA, I want earth element, water element, fire element. These Buddhists, where do they live? You see? So you have to be very careful with these terms. You have to be very careful with these terms. So now, this is what, when we crave for something, when we have sensual pleasure, we want things to be constant, isn't it? So now, what I'm mapping out is very important for your understanding connection. Yeah? So now, what about these people who believe these things? They believe in what? Annihilation, things to end. Things to what? To end. So what I want you to understand is this AB. A, B, C, D. What you are seeing A, B, C, D is dukkha, actually. Is what? According to the Buddha, not according to me. He's saying that it's eternalistic, things exist forever. Annihilation, things stop completely, and then this constant. Are we together? Now, the connection with the teaching of impermanence is this one. What did we see in the characteristics of existence? Tell me. Rising. Is that it? You don't say anything. I told you to jot it down. What did we see the characteristics of impermanence? Rising. Rising and what? Do you see how it counteract the falling part of this blue? Because here we are seeing what? Rising. So we are going to counteract this. Are we together? What did we see about the falling? Did we see another characteristic called falling? We saw it, my friend. We didn't see it? There were 3 characteristics. One was falling out. So this is the red one. So if somebody is seeing things rising all the time, the eternalist people, here the Buddha is saying, no, let us see it falling. Isn't it? As a characteristics. And now, today you have learned spiritual technology behind all this. Buddha was not teaching this for academic entertainment. He had a vision. Now, people who crave things to be constant, but here Buddha is teaching what? Rising and passing away. Rising and passing away. Rising and pass away. We are going to name this XY. XY. W. W. X. Y. Z. This is what I call bondage. The blue one is called bondage. 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 And this liberation. That's why every time you meditate, we want you to see the rising and passing out all the time to undermine these tendencies that the Buddha gave in the first discourse. This is what we call IT. No, ST, spiritual technology. Behind the teaching of impermanence. Please don't make songs out of Buddha's teaching. You can sing and dance, but you should know behind why the Buddha intended this. To undermine the tendency of things arising forever, so you see it falling. To undermine the thing that things stop, to see it as rising. To undermine the consistent things. So no, constance leads a lot of problem. Let us see rising and passing away all the time. Rising and passing away all the time. Rising and passing. So whenever we see rising and passing away, then we lose the grip on things we are craving for, we are clinging to. I don't know how. Are we together? I'm going to wrap this. I think you got it. That's why every moment we say it's like, please see things passing our way. We are addressing this problem. The Buddha was telling that, people are, it's always rising from this. From this to come. Then we see this curve, the blue one, and the red one is the liberation curve. I'm going to wrap this one. And the last part is going to be delusions. Delusions, we have 4 kinds of delusions. This is easy, and then we open it to Q&A. We have delusions, which is called, delusions are called Vipallasa. Vipallasa is a delusion we have. We call it Vipallasa. These are delusions we have, whereby we see things in a very distorted way. We call the 4 distortions. 4 what? 4 distortions. Optical illusions, distortions. So these distortions actually, it's a long discourse, the short discourse, but there's a lot of things you need to know, but just get to know like this. Instead of seeing things as impermanence, we see them as what? Permanence. These are called delusions. And there is a reason for that, but I don't have time to talk about it. Then, number 1. Then another one is things are suffering, actually, but we deluded. We see them as what? Happiness. And now with the self, with non-self, instead of things which have no self, we see them as self. And then with the things which are unattractive, we see them as what? Attractive. Now, these are called the 4 Vipallasa. In fact, that's why we practice Vipassana. That's why we practice what? Vipassana. To oppose this. In Vipassana, what do? V stands for seeing various things. Those are seeing in various forms. That means anicca, dukkha, anatta. And now Passana is seeing. So we actually counteract all this by practicing Vipassana, which is seeing things as impermanent, because of these 4 delusions. We call it 4 what? Delusions. It's enough for today. Questions? There's a reason why actually there's distortions, but I think you know this. Because when we look at the body, actually, the body looks so physical, The body looks permanent, actually, And also ideas we have, let's say anger. When you have anger, I'm angry for the whole day. But you cannot be angry even for the 2 moments. It's always rising and passing. It's because we're just kind of chewing a cud, regurgitating thoughts, and then it comes back, and then it comes back. So everything is what? In a constant what? Move, So then we have these Vipallasas. But anyway, this is enough for today regarding impermanence and dukkha and why the Buddha taught it. I hope there is something I've shared with you. Actually, what I've done is connect points, the Dhamma, where it connects to the original teaching of the Buddha. Everything I told you is a critical response. You remember my word I used? It was a critical response to the... Yes, I taught it last time. And last time I talked about it without giving you the discourse, because I had marked it, but for instance, then I said, okay, let's go. But the discourse, we've read it, while he was teaching, to avoid those extremes, and this is the middle way. That's the what? The middle way. Yeah, so now questions.
Any questions?
You see, I'm a bit worried whenever people don't ask questions. Why? Is 1, they have not understood at all. 2, they have understood everything.
Yes.
They have what? Understood everything. But I'm not worried about understanding everything. But I'm more worried on the other side. On the other side, it worries me so much that sometime I give a talk one time, and then somebody asks, Bhante, do you think we should get attached to craving or what? There's a talk normally on non-self. Every time I give a talk, 1 hour and all this thing about non-self. Again, somebody the next day asked a question. Bhante, you talked about self. I spent 1 hour talking about non-self. And then we would call Joseph Goldenstein to answer questions. Answer questions. And he would give a very good answer. Now, hearing it from another person, again, that person asks question. But if there's no self, then who's reborn? Again, that comes to the same thing, you know. So that's why I always I leave time for questions, because it's very, very important to make clear. Please ask.
So maybe I'm asking this question because my understanding is quite shallow. I haven't read a lot of suttas, but I was confused by the two sides. So why do you put? I didn't come on Tuesday. Yeah.
You didn't come on Tuesday?
I didn't. I couldn't come on Tuesday. Oh, okay. Should I look at a recording or something then? Should I ask my question or should I?
No, ask me, please.
Oh, okay. So I was confused as to why no self or annihilation was tied to pleasure, whereas eternalism and self were tied to self-mortification.
Okay, I tell you. Since you are not there. Now. Let me see. Sometime I need to borrow time, but let me go again. So when you have what you call eternalist views, eternalism views, there is a belief with the eternalism views that there is a self, which is what you call spiritual self, spiritual form, spiritual self, spiritual. The self is spiritual, in other words, self. All right? They believe there is a spiritual self. All right? So, and this spiritual self is duality. We call duality. Duality. In other words, it's different, separate from the body. Separate from the what? The body is different. All right? You see that side is not equal. So now, what they believed that this self or the soul, this is very important to really remember this, because this really forms the whole Buddha's teaching. If you don't understand this, then you have a problem with understanding Buddha's teaching, like naive independent origination, even karma, you have a problem. That's why they say, people say, everything is caused by karma, and all things are caused by karma. Buddha was talking about all those. That's what we see in Buddhist country. It's better you understand this point. Yeah? So now, the body and the self is separate, or the soul is separate. So what they did, those things, things you should understand, they are separate. So now, in order these things to leave the body, to go upward, escape the they have rights and rituals. Rights and what? Rights and rituals. And the idea was to purify the soul, the soul. Now, this is, it's made what? Dirty. Actions they do. You know, when you have a body, you do bad things and all. That is something bad. It's something the soul that is. So in order to purify this soul, they had self-mortification to purify the what? The soul. So you can, once it's pure, then it the next life, to escape the gravitation of the body. Gravitation of the body. So now, this kind of practices could go in water, standing on one leg for a long time, to punish the body from what it's doing, and to purify the soul, so that it's clean. That's what they thought of cleaning, purifying it. Let's say someone kills somebody, then they go in water and immerse themselves. So that immersion in water, thing that you purify the seas. So this is what we call self-mortification. In many ways, these are called in general rituals. Those words and rituals have nothing to do with enlightenment, according to the Buddha. Nothing to do with what? What it has to be directly or indirectly connected to the Noble Eightfold Path. This one, Noble Eightfold Path. In other words, most people, even monks, have 27 rules. They think that, oh, monks are self-mortifying themselves. They don't eat dinner. Let's enjoy it. They go eat hotel. You people, you are self-mortification. You stay with your rules. You monks, the five precepts, you attain the first level of enlightenment. Then people ask you monks, why you keep 227 precepts? We lay people can keep 5 precepts and attain the Sotapanna, stream entry. So they use that argument that, well, if you want to get liberated, why are you keeping so many rules? You are mortifying yourself, you know. So you got self-mortification. On one side, it was the opposite. On the opposite side, we have what we call annihilation views. Annihilationism. So this one was different. My sister. This one was self is equal. You see, this is not equal to the body. Is what? Is equal to the body. So the body then, it was like physical also. This was considered physical body. And this also was physical. It had elements, 4 elements, including space actually, 4 elements. So since this was physical and this was physical, and they're equal, so at the time of death, the body and the mind, the self or the soul is going to stop there and then. No further. So what you should do if you know that after death, and that's what you believe even when you're alive, then you know that there is no nibbana, there is no heaven, there is no giving good things, because when you give good things, it will all stop the death. Why bother? Why bother do dana? Why bother even keeping the 5 precepts? So those people didn't keep the precepts. These people are not practicing generosity. They undermine the effort. There's no one. So what they did in the habits called self-indulgence. Self what? Indulgence. And in self-indulgence, they did what call attachment to what? Pleasure. They were attached. They were craving actually. Craving for what? For sensual pleasures. They craved for them because they know that they're not going to live. So you should understand both. So the Buddha in his discourse was saying is going to this one. These are extremes. Self-indulgence on one side and motivation on the other side. Are we together? By the way, you come here again and again. I'm going to continue connecting you to this one again. Please stay tuned. Because I think most of the teaching that we learn, we keep on collecting, and we don't connect to the original teaching of the Buddha, what he intended. Thank you very much. Another question? Did you get answered? Okay, I'm so happy. I will have a good night today. If I can make one person understand. But what I'm talking, does it make sense to you? Okay, I'm so happy. More sleep. I'm going to sleep very, very well. If this session, people understood what the Buddha intended, you know. Because many times we learn these things, but we learn them in isolation. So what I'm doing is try to connect together. This connect to this. Yes, it took me many years to understand spiritual technology also. Every time people are talking about IT, all this kind of thing. So now, when I started looking at the connection, I said, wow, there is what's called spiritual technology. And last question, by the way. Last question. Now you made me happy when you ask question. You're not on the other side of not understanding at all. If one person asks question, I become very happy. The more one person asks question.
Last question.
Yeah, we have 5 minutes. No problem.
Hello, thank you, Bhante, for this very good teaching today. I want to ask about the diagram you drew, right? The blue line up, and then the constant, and then the blue line down, right? Then there's another red line. So I think I understand from the middle part, the constant, we should see rising and passing away, rising and passing away, that part, I guess. But then the blue line that goes up, that is like continue, then you were saying when one thinks of things this way, we should look at it the opposite way, which is the passing away. But can you share a live example of how we can apply this?
Yeah, for the constant, so you understand.
Yeah.
The live example is that when you have eternalist view, for instance, you go to the restaurant. You go to what? To restaurant. And then you taste the food. You taste the what? The food. Actually, even the live example I gave you about my vision. I was attached to my vision. I thought it's going to be there forever. Isn't it? That was my example. And the day they told me that I have a good, the doctor told me that, if all people have a vision like you, I'll run out of business. And this was a very good, it was best optician in Rio de Janeiro. So now every time I had eternalist view that my vision is going to stay forever until maybe I die. So, but I didn't meditate and see that everything have a tendency to fall. So that's one of the characteristics of impermanence, falling. That's then if I kept on meditating that, okay, everything has a nature of falling, I would not be deluded for all these years, such that when I went to even the optician in Sri Lanka, I kind of denied the fact that actually vision can pass away. So in other words, the practice of impermanence is always to seeing things rising and passing away, and passing away. So this teaching should become immediate that, okay, if I really had more wisdom, at that time when the doctor told me that if everybody has a vision like you, I will run out of business. That's the time I should now start thinking about, okay, one day it will pass away. But I didn't do that. I kept on being deluded that I have the best vision, but it was changing all the time, but I was not paying attention to it. So this is a classic example. That was a practical example that I gave. That all the time I thought that the vision is going to be. But the teaching of the Buddha is what? See, what characteristic you saw? You are deluded like this. Buddha said, do like this. Isn't it? People who commit suicide, you are not asking that question. Yeah. They think they are going to do what? They commit suicide, they think that they're going to end their life. But anybody who has practiced Buddha's teaching, we know that always things are going to rise. The 5 aggregates are going to come again. Are we together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so
I've
much.
got extreme examples because that's going on all the time. Most people think they're going to end things like that. But anybody who practices Buddha's teaching moment to moment cannot be deluded that if you commit suicide, then that will be the end. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, another good example is that you might have a misunderstanding with somebody. You say, I don't want you. You want to end the relationship. But you cannot trust human beings like that. Always they come up. But classic example is relatives. I get disagreement with a relative, and you insult them and all that. I don't want to see you ever again. But wait, I don't know about Singapore. There's a funeral, and you see things again. You see, there you get so deluded when you're angry, and you don't see things as the really other things have a nature to rise. So you end the relationship with your brother or whatever because they did something wrong to you, and guess what? There's a wedding, you see them again, things rising. And those are the people you have to even resort to prepare a cup of tea. Those are really classic examples that we think that things are ending, and we have ended them, but they have a nature of rising. So then we contemplate on the rising part because you are deluded like this. And now wedding thing. I'm going to love you until the sun goes. But after 2 days, you put maybe a cup in the wrong place, and then you start getting into things changing. So, but this is not to make us gloomy. This teaching is not to make us gloomy. No, it's made us to be tenacious alive, to think as we are. That's why the same vision arises. They should make us think like that. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yes.
Last question. Last. No, last. At least 3 people. Buddham, Dhammam, Sangham. 3 times. Yes. You see, that's the best session I enjoy. That's why I'm able to borrow time. When people ask questions, and now we discuss the answer, and they nod their head that they've understood, they officially make my day. Yeah, that's how monks get happy, actually. You're wondering why monks get high? Is really actually getting to know that people understood the Dhamma, because we are living for the Dhamma. Yeah? If you understand it, okay, please ask a question.
Thanks for the question. So I'm just curious that where does the 4 Brahma Viharas fit into all this annihilation, the annihilationism and eternalism? Thank you. The speaker is not good today.
He asked, how does the 4 the Brahma Viharas fit into this eternalism and nihilism?
They go out of this. They stay clear of that. Because Brahma Viharas is part of the right thoughts. It can't be one of these. Yeah, but we have to understand the Dhamma in 2 ways. One is on a relative level, another is on ultimate level, right? So now, when we practice Dhamma, like the 4 Brahma Viharas, we have to see beings as beings, really. Like they're called beings on that level, all right? Don't say, now the Buddha is teaching about anatta, then whom are you sending metta? Who is sending metta and whom are you sending metta? Now you scratch the question, very interesting. That brings us to something very important. That's why you should not go with the question. This is a very good question. Allow me to borrow 5 minutes. This last question. So all of you ask questions very, very important. When it comes to those practices like Brahma Viharas, and you ask how they fit into this, you need to know 3 things. If you know these things, metta have a place. Metta and Brahma Viharas are going to have a place, including precepts. So it's a usage of the oneself. Usage of what? Usage of the oneself in Buddhism, by the Buddha, of course. So the Buddha used the word self in many occasions. Let's talk about how the Buddha's understanding of it. One was in reflexive sense. Reflexive, oneself. Yourself, So the Buddha should say, a lamb unto yourself. You should train what? Yourself. Train yourself. So the Buddha continued to use the word self in his conversation. So this, in a way, language, reflexive sense. Right? Now, another usage of the word self, the Buddha used it, is a shorthand device. Short what? Shorthand device. To represent what we call body and mind. Body and what? We call it physical phenomena. So in this case, the Buddha had a problem. So may you be well up. Send metta to yourself, send metta to others. This is the problem. The usage of the Buddha problem, which was going all this kind of thing, is permanent self. This is Buddha said, no way. The Buddha had a problem with the belief that there's a permanent what? Permanent self. That's where the Buddha had a problem. The rest you can do. So in other words, when you send metta, you are sending metta to your body and mind, or the 5 aggregates. It's okay. May my aggregates be happy. That's why you ask me a question, I'm happy. Where I'm happy is this one. But most people ask this question thinking that, okay, if there's no self, then who are you sending metta? Because they don't understand these three aspects where the Buddha used, two aspects where the Buddha is okay. So it's okay to send metta just because it brings happiness. The Buddha's teaching is not an end in itself. It's actually both ends, there's the means and the end. So in other words, the idea that the end justifies the means doesn't work in Buddhism. So the means and the end should be fine. So in other words, we know the means is to use the 5 aggregates, all right? And then we send metta for the purpose of overcoming anger. And once we overcome anger, and then we progress and practice. Are we together? If you understand this, you have no problem, because I've been to conferences where even the Dalai Lama was there, and many people in Washington, D.C., doctors and scientists, they ask if there's no self, then who's on a conference? Then the question is, if there's no self, then why are you practicing metta, and whom are you practicing metta with? That question will not arise when you know that the Buddha had no problem using this as a self, another one, this one. There's no problem. These are a shorthand device. Send metta to yourself, send metta to others, is a representation. Otherwise, it's going to be awkward. The 5 aggregates are talking to the 5 aggregates. 5 aggregates is going to meet 5 aggregates, meaning that Brother Henry is taking me for lunch tomorrow. Then I will say the 5 aggregates are going to the 5 aggregates to have. It will be so awkward. So the Buddha said, no problem. Shorthand device. I'm going to Brother Henry. I, me. These all are used to represent. You get the point? Otherwise, the awkward, the 5 aggregates are asking 5 aggregate questions. I said, this is going to be awkward. So that's why he said, okay, you send metta. There's no problem in sending metta, because it's part of what? Part of right thought, isn't it? Thought of non-hatred. So that's the noble path. So how it fits, to answer your question directly, is the middle path. What is middle path? Visa, you remember? Then part of the right thoughts is thoughts of metta. That's where it fits in. It's still not with this. Because it's not about annihilation. Eternalism is not about annihilation. It's about the middle path. That's where it fits. But I think I had to answer your to understand this, because there will be no end to questions. All the questions since I started teaching in 2007, all questions about non-self arise because of this lack of understanding this. All questions, almost, and there's no place where I teach a retreat and a question doesn't come connected to that.
Bhante, what do you put under this, the whole 3 points, under usage or in what? What was your title?
Usage of the word self. Usage of the word self. Usage, the way how to use the word self.
Oh, oneself.
Usage.
Okay.
Usage of self.
Of self.
Yes, that usage.
Okay, thank
The
you.
way how to use it. It's used. It's used in many suttas. You should get up to yourself. You should meditate yourself. You should do. The Buddha uses it. But when people challenge, okay, the Buddha was teaching about non-self. Why is he talking about yourself? Oneself. But the Buddha had no problem. Linguistic use. And he had no problem as a shorthand device to represent, so that he avoids awkwardness of 5 aggregates talking to 5 aggregates. The problem in his society, that's what was prevailing. And that's what he challenged. He went a lot of pain that most of his teaching is actually about debunking this. By the way, all the time I'm going to stay here, I'm going to tell you how Buddha's teaching was, mostly of them, debunking this. There's other teaching which was more indirectly. But most of the major teaching were really now get rid of this stuff, because it was bringing a lot of suffering. Be it dependent origination, be it karma, be it... Most of his teachings are really related to this. Thank you for... I borrowed the 10 minutes from you. I hope my friends... Are you happy? Thank you very much. We are done for the day.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Bhante can sleep well tonight.
Yeah? Yes, I'm going to sleep very well. 3 questions out of it. That's wonderful. Okay, sharing the merit?
Yes, Bhante.
Okay. Akasata Chabumata Devanaga Mahitika Punyatam Anumoditva Chiramrakantu Lokasasana Akasata Chabumata Devanaga Mahitika Punyatam Anumoditva Chiramrakantu Desana Akasata Chabumata Devanaga Mahitika Punyatam Anumoditva Chiramrakantu Mampara Etawata Chakame Sampadam Punya Sampadam Sabbe Deva Anumodantu Sabba Sampatti Siddhya Etawata Chakame Sampadam Punya Sampadam Sabbe Bhuta Anumodantu Sabba Sampatti Siddhya Etawata Chakame Sampadam Punya Sampadam Sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo satam samagamo hotu yavanibana patiya sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you very much for your reflection.
Thank you, Bhante.
I hope it's for your reflection also.
Yes, thank you.
Juggle in your mind, and then you put things together, and we work on this journey together. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank
be
you,
well,
Bhante.